So Alan achieved a considerable amount of success. What's left for you to do next?
The question was, Sir Alan's achieved a lot of success. What's there left to do next?
I think that, as far as I'm concerned, unless I enjoy doing what I do, I won't do it, if you understand what I mean. In the electronics industry, you never reach the end of the road. Never, ever reach the end of the road. It's an industry in which I've been in for 35 years, and, you know, come September of each year, with this theoretical start of our season, our best-selling season, you sit around and you're thinking, what the hell are we going to be selling next year? Because you think...
Is it sort of fashion business, is it?
Well, it's not so much... It is fashion, but it is also technology-driven, and you can't imagine what else you're going to be selling in a year's time, what you're going to be developing for a year's time, and all that stuff. So that fascinates me. So what excites me is bringing new products into the marketplace, new innovations, new ideas, and that's what keeps me going, really. But the day I don't enjoy doing that, I'll pack it in. It's as simple as that. Property business is boring as anything you can describe. You can watch paint dry and get more excited than that. But it is just a stable kind of industry in which one secures income and all that type of thing. But the electronics industry is where am I going next? I don't know. The answer is we've got lots of good stuff on the drawing boards at the moment, which will be, you know, in your homes in 2 or 3 years' time, and you know, which I can honestly say to you that 18 months ago we didn't have a clue, didn't even have the vision of it. So that's the excitement for me, as far as I'm concerned, in the industry.
Good afternoon, Sir Alan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I've got a question from one of my students who's a bit nervous to ask the question. He wants to know, do you think that the British government should do more to encourage manufacturing businesses in the UK?
Where is it? Sitting next to you?
He's over here.
Well, why don't you talk up for yourself? Just repeat the question. It's a starting point.
The British government should do more to encourage manufacturing businesses in the UK.
Well, it wasn't so hard, was
Good
it?
stuff.
It's a very good question. I think there's a problem there, in the sense that we are no longer, unfortunately, regretfully, a manufacturing country. Simply because places like China have taken over the manufacturing of consumer products, what I call hard products, to such an extent that the manufacturers in this country and in Europe cannot compete. It's been like that in the United States for the past 25 years. The only thing they make now are cars, and you can decide whether you consider their cars or not, but and that's really political, that they make cars. If they really had their own way, if it was allowable, that they would all be made abroad also. Regretfully, we can no longer compete simply on a labour basis. Now, the niche market, I suppose, for manufacturing is possible, where it's products that are not mass produced. You couldn't produce televisions, hi-fi units, computers and things like that in this country. You just get slaughtered on cost. But there are, you know, niche organisations in the electronics industry that produce a £500 amplifier that only a very small amount of people will buy, and the volume and the quantity is very small, so one can manufacture it. I think the food industry, there's possibilities in manufacturing, and to a certain extent in the fashion industry again, that has gone completely abroad. So whether it's government you can blame for not encouraging it, I think they can encourage it as much as you want, but you can't kind of force something that is physically not possible, really. I think that the protectionism that existed many years ago in quotas and things like that was a little bit too severe in those times, but perhaps there needed to be a little bit more protectionism over here. You've seen that fellow Mandelson a couple of months ago trying to protect braziers or something like that, because they're coming in from China at ridiculous prices, he didn't succeed. We're not a manufacturer anymore, and I don't think the government can do anything about it. To be frank with you.
Okay, next question. Hands up. Is it gentleman over there, right at the far side. Yep, lady there in the red.
Hello, Sir Alan. My name's Alex. I work in human resources. I was just wondering how much importance you place on softer skills in business, influencing skills, team working, etc.
I'm sorry, on what skills?
The softer skills.
What are the softer skills? Excuse my ignorance. I'm an old-fashioned bloke from
I was
Hackney.
thinking of things like team working, influencing skills, sort of stakeholder management, that sort of thing.
I think these are new words made up. New words made up to keep people busy, if you ask me. Sorry, I've got no answer for that, really. Management is management. You've got to have something to manage. That is the point. The gentleman over there made a valid point about manufacturing. When I started manufacturing in this country years ago, we had managers that were skilled in running a factory floor, in procurement of materials and transport and loading and unloading and all that type of stuff. All those kind of skills have gone away, really, and we're left with people our company still calls itself a manufacturer. In fact, what we have is a design and engineering department in this country, and we own the intellectual property of the product that we produce. And no one else can make it, good or bad, whether they want to make it. And we subcontract the manufacturer to China. And they're the skills that we have, and we call ourselves a manufacturer. Sony, Philips, and everybody else does the same. But the other industries that have sprouted up since we've lost manufacturing are these so-called service industries and consultants and human resource experts and what was the other things you was talking about? You can, if you like, create things to do in an organisation when you haven't got enough to do, really, if you know what I mean. Meetings, to have organise the next meeting if you want to.
Following on from that question, Sally, about a team player, when you're looking for the apprentice, are you looking for someone who's a team player or someone's an individual?
Well, not everybody's the same, really. It depends what job you have in mind for them. There's a need for people to organise a team, and sometimes there's a need for a maverick, really.
Right. Okay. Gentleman there. Or gentleman at the end with the microphone. Go ahead.
Hi, Sir Alan. What I'd like to ask is, I cast my mind back to 20 years ago or so when I had a ZX Spectrum and so on. Very recently, over Easter, there was an article in the paper about a guy who claims to have invented the MP3 player in 1978 or 1979. Is there anything over the past 30, 40 years that you wish you'd got on the back of more quickly and got there first?
Yeah, of course. You look around at some of the things that are in the marketplace and you think, my God, it's wasn't so brilliant and it's not rocket science, and we could make them easily for half the price, if you understand what I mean. But, that happens, really. You can't win them all, I guess there might have been people looking around back in 1984 when we brought out that famous word processor of ours and said, someone like IBM, for example, would have said, bloody hell, it's nothing. What's just nothing brilliant in this thing? Why didn't we do it? Well, they didn't. I did. And if you take the current success of the iPod for Apple, I mean, you mentioned the gentleman that claims to have invented the MP3 player. Weren't much to invent, quite frankly, in the sense that it is a memory chip and a bit of software that allows you to download, files of some kind onto it. And yet, Apple have jumped on the bandwagon, captured the people's imagination with a mixture of what they call technology, but also fashion, and have managed to charge 10 times the amount of money that the thing really costs if an ordinary Chinese manufacturer made it and put some nondescript brand on the product. And taking that point, people have tried to imitate the Apple product, and because of fashion, because of marketing, you go, especially the young people, you go into a shop and you get told quite categorically and shown a specification sheet, this is the same as that. In fact, it is better than that. In fact, it's 10 times better than that. And it's half the price, and they'll still buy the Apple. That's how it is. But, yeah, of course, there's lots of things that you'd have loved to have made before other people. But such is life. I'm not complaining. In fact, I'll give you a funny story, which is a true story. You may all remember the era that we went through 10 years ago with these palm pads, these kind of PDA things, and there is also a scenario where you can be too early, because the first, I'm not crying in my beer here, but the first company that made a palm pad was us, and we made 100,000 of them. And they didn't sell, and because we were too early, and we chucked it, we slung them in. We just gave up, and we were there too early, and then the rest of the story afterwards. Yeah. 7 or 8 trillion of them were built afterwards by a company called Palm. But I can, anybody looks at back at the history of Amstrad can look and see the Palm pad was. I think we called it the Palm Pad or the Notepad or something, was out 10 years beforehand.
Okay, next question. Jump me right in the front row here.
Yes, Alan, what are the worst and best business ideas you've come across?
That I've come across? Well, we haven't got all day, really. I don't know.
The worst.
Pardon?
I'm more interested in the worst and the best.
Well, I can't remember really. You're not particularly asking about my worst ones, but generally worst business ideas. Yeah, I mean, the dot-com boom, for example, which was when you saw some of these no-hopers come along and raise tens of millions of pounds, and you kind of slapped yourself, thinking, am I missing the point here somewhere? Or for some of the, brainstorm ideas. I can't remember what they were, but they're the worst business ideas where venture capitalists just threw their money at these things. They had never a chance of surviving or being successful. I can't put my finger on an actual example, but now you've stored that one in my memory banks. If I come up with anything, I'll mention it later on. But there were some very, very bad things.
Jump with the microphone at the top there.
Hi, good evening, Sir Alan. Donald Stavert from a firm called Capacity. If you ever make a PDA that has a battery that lasts longer than a day, it'll be a winner, and I'll buy it, and so will everybody else. But the question I wanted to ask you is, what's your core values, and have they changed over the years in the light experience?
Core values. I think you have to split that up into your personal values, personal values of life and business. Right. If we're talking about business, I'm afraid my core values are a dying habit. Because I'm one of the old-fashioned loyal players, really, where I think that there's certain loyalty should exist with business partners that do business with each other, and but that doesn't exist in this modern day and age now. There's a ruthlessness around where what you've done in the past to assist your customer or is completely discounted as well. That was the past. Now's the future.
Amstrad has long-term business relationships, isn't it, with suppliers?
Oh no, we are diamonds with our suppliers. I mean, if I say so myself. In other words, you know, we stick to our existing suppliers and we have them for 20, 30 years. Of course, we're not a charity, and of course, you know, they have to be competitive, and of course, if they continually default in whatever way, you know, regretfully, we give them up. But we're fair players, yeah, and there's no fair playing out there anymore. This afternoon, I can't say where I was, but I was at a very high-profile place where I kind of virtually I lost my temper with the people, really over the terrible way that they treat our company and forget what we've done for them in the past. But then again, I look at this young, you know, load of spreadsheet punchers sitting in front of me. And I think to myself, you know, stop banging your head up against the wall. Perhaps what I've got to do is just get a couple of young spreadsheet punchers and put them together, and rather than expect any common sense out of people, really, and common decency. So that, as far as business is concerned, that's my gripe, really. And you know, I'm a straight talker, really. Not sometimes you don't want to hear what I've got to say, and I think if if you talk to anybody who I've done business with over the years, they will, without question of a doubt, tell you that initially they thought I was a horrible, nasty person. And today they will say he is a horrible, nasty person, but he's very fair, and you know where you stand. And in business, that's what you want to do, don't you? You really want to know where you stand, really. You want to know where you are, where you stand, and if someone shakes your hand, and I will say, and people say it of us, that a handshake is better than any 50-page contract. That's my kind of values. But as I said, it's a dying breed. As far as personal life is concerned, values have been the same. I mean, I was born in a council flat, you know, I have a lot of respect for people that don't have as much as I do now, and still, you know, meeting with friends that I've had since I was 15 or 16 years old, who are not in as a fortunate position as I'm in, and I've instilled in my children with great difficulty, well, not with great difficulty, with the assistance of my wife, a kind of a value of that, you know, it wasn't their fault they got born to a very wealthy individual, but there's a danger that they could turn into nasty people, really. And I think we've done a tremendously good job because they're very nice people. And so that's my kind of values, really.
So, Alan, you've got tremendous drive. Where do you think that came from? From your upbringing? My determination initially was to look around in this environment that I was brought up in, the council flat environment with a working class family, father that worked tremendously hard, in an era where employers weren't as decent as they're forced to be today. And decided at a very young age that this is not going to happen to me, you know. And I never set out to be a millionaire. I just set out to make sure that I'm not working for anybody else, and I will control. So you can be self-sufficient.
I just can exactly just be self-sufficient and control my own destiny. And of course, as you get married, then you need to you want to be sufficient for your family, and so on and so forth. And by default, if you like, we started making a bit too much more money than expected, and it got exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Question in the middle here. Gentleman in the middle here. If you pass the microphone. Anyone's got a microphone at the moment with their hands?
The young man over there. Let the young chap over.
So, Alan, what do you think has made you so successful?
Well, I think that, answering the gentleman's question just now is the starting point. The desire to be self-sufficient, yeah, and not to have to rely upon anybody else. And therefore finding things to do which I could make money out of. Now,
at this point, I've got to say that you could have that desire, but it might not work, because I'm going to say that I've possibly been blessed with a talent of some kind, in a similar fashion that, say, a concert pianist is blessed with in a way that he can play the piano, or an artist can capture on a canvas something. Now, I could learn to play the piano. I'm sure someone could teach me to play the piano if they sat with me long enough. Would I ever be a concert pianist? No. Someone could give me some paints and an easel, and I reckon after a couple of years I could knock out something which looked like a painting. Will I ever be a great artist? No. And it's the same thing about this entrepreneurial spirit that lies within me somewhere, that I was born with or blessed with. Can I make you have it? Can you buy it in Boots, over the counter in a bottle? Can you buy a book to read it? No. It's there or it's not there. And I was lucky enough that it was there with me, because whilst I had that desire to go out and be self-sufficient, it's a great thing to say and want to do, you've still got to spot the opportunities to be able to make it come into fruition.
Isn't a fundamental aspect of an entrepreneurial spirit, it's just having the courage to have a go?
No.
No?
I don't think, I think I've just tried to eloquently explain what entrepreneurial spirit is all about. It's there. You can't buy it. You can't, there's lots of people that have got courage. There's nurses, there's doctors, there's sportsmen, there's sports personalities, there's, you know, people that have got courage, but they wouldn't know how to sell a box.
What I'm thinking
of
of is all the conversations that go on in pubs where people have great ideas but never put the idea into action. You were someone who had an idea and actually did it. IBM could have done the word processor, but you actually had the balls to do it.
Well, we're not crying for IBM. They're still around. They're still around, aren't they? You know, it's not as if they've gone skint or anything like that.
Okay, next question. Gentleman right at the back here.
Hello, sorry. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay, good. Sales is my game. I wanted to sort of get an idea, an insight really from you on the key attributes that you would see as to make a person a successful business person. So over the time that you've obviously built up the company, you would have picked up those sort of key attributes, and if you could sort of articulate those to us, then we can learn from that, really.
Of a salesman or a businessman?
Both.
Both.
Well, I think, look, you could be. I mean, the point is that there's the integrity and honesty, as far as I'm concerned, goes without saying, and you could push that to one side at the moment, because you can be honest and have a high integrity, but if you've got a lousy product, your prices are too high, it's irrelevant. So it's a mixture of spotting opportunities. I mean, starting from the top, if your own business, spotting opportunities, products, services that you want to offer that do bring value to whomever you're going to sell them to, and then having the nous to go and sell them. I mean, again, this young man's question over there is very, very similar. You know, I get asked a lot in a similar question in universities and places like this. You don't just jump out of bed one Monday morning and I want to be Richard Branson, I'm going to start an airline. Like that. I want to start an airline tomorrow morning, you know. Now, total nonsense, right? I mean, have you got any money? No, but I want to start an airline tomorrow morning. You say there's a certain realism as to what one needs to do. Secondly, you've got to look at, you've got to also have a realistic point of view. I'm new, I'm starting, I've got a new business. What do I offer somebody else? What do I offer my potential customer? What have I got that they can't already get from 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 other people? Because if I'm not offering anything different, then I've got a tough job ahead of me. And I think you have to continually test yourself on that basis. I used to test myself with products. Is this a good product or not? Well, has anybody else got one? Or is it the same as what other people have got but half the price? Does it do more? Has it got different features on it? Does it look better? Is the market ready for it? That's the test. And from my point of view, I can only talk from my experience, my products did the talking. You know, I could be the greatest salesman in the world, the most charming person in the world, whatever you want to be.
You could advertise and do whatever you want. If the product sucks, then you've got no business. And I can only answer you from my position. It's very product or service driven.
And choosing a product, do you choose the product on instinct or basis of deliberate market research?
Well, as I explained once to Mr. Narita of Sony, the late Mr. Narita of Sony, who was one of my fans, and he used to give all these people a load of stick out there, but when he used to surpass his profit figures. There are no statistics for something that doesn't exist. You can't go to get out the Harvard Business School or lesson 1, page 36, and say, product research. Let's go and look into the market and see how many of these products exist in the market. Let's look at the market size, how many sold on Wednesday afternoon in Wandsworth on a rainy day on Thursday. Well, none actually, because this is a new product, this is a new innovation, not been around before. And the likes of Sony in the mid-80s and Philips became very lethargic and got into that kind of mode. In other words, well, we're not going to risk it, this is a bit too risky for us. And whereas we were a bit more of a maverick organisation where we felt, well, look, if you make this kind of product, if it was made for that kind of price, if it catered for that kind of market, I know there's no research in it, but there's a gut instinct that says, we'll go for it. And that's why we were so successful on gut instinct.
Next question. Gentleman here, just in from the side, this row, dark shirt.
There's a gentleman over there. I will speak to you next. Excuse my back.
Hi, Sir Alan. If you were thinking of acquiring a business, what key points would you look at within that business?
It's a very broad question, really. I mean, I don't want to waffle to you, because the only businesses that I would be thinking of acquiring would be one allied to my industry, really. And, I would immediately, I would home in on certain things that maybe would have no relevance to you. As an example, a semiconductor manufacturer rang us up one day, rang one of my engineers one day, saying, and this is going back the early 90s, and said there's a mobile phone manufacturer just gone bust in Denmark, and this mobile phone thing, one day is going to take off. Bit of an understatement. And that kind of bust, they've gone bust. They've got 500 engineers and employees, and they're about to go down the Swanee, and not the kind of business you want to buy in receivership. But I jumped straight on a plane, a jet, and flew straight into the town in Denmark to look at the business, and walked through the factory floor and called an audience with the key engineers in the canteen, and within an hour I made an assessment that I can't quantify or put in writing to you or write a book about how it was done. It was done from here. It was done from looking at the way the factory was set up, looking at the product that they were working on, talking to the engineers and seeing how far they'd gone. And within an hour, I promised the engineers that whatever was going to happen, I would pay their salaries for the next 6 weeks. And they could sit in their offices and flick elastic bands at each other in the meantime. But I will pay their salaries for the next 6 weeks until we sort out some financial deal. Now, we ended up buying that company off of the receiver for £6 million or something. Very, very small. It wasn't the money that we paid for the company. It was more the commitment that we were taking on the 1,000 or 2,000 employees. And after 3 or 4 years, we sold the business to Bosch for £150 million. Now, that was a phone call from a semiconductor engineer to one of my engineers, who came to me and said something, and it sparked something off, and a day later we're on a jet and we're there and it's done. And but go write that in a book,
what did I see in that factory? I couldn't even start to explain to you what I saw in that factory that said to me, this is a deal, we'll have this deal. And that's because of the experience that I have of electronic factories and also dealing with engineers.
There's a gentleman in the front row along here.
Yes, that gentleman over there.
Yep, far away.
Over here, this gentleman's been patient. Just wait for your microphone.
Just coming.
Thank you. Hi. Can you single out one quality that you would admire in someone who wants to learn from you?
One quality that I would admire. Well, I think that an absorbent brain is what motivates me. I must admit I haven't got much patience, and I don't like to say things twice or tell people things twice. I've got no problem with pointing young people in the right direction if they've got done something wrong, and or they've misunderstood something or something like that. But I think that I really appreciate those that once they've been told, you don't see them do it again.
Gentleman here in the middle.
Sir Alan, good evening. We talk about quite a big businesses, but being an independent retailer, representing the industries over 19,000 retailers. 25 years ago, in this country, we used to have 500,000 small independent retailers, i.e., you can call the meat butchers and all of them.
Yeah.
Now we have got 147,000 independent retailers left.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of the independent?
Pretty bleak, regretfully, and I sympathise with it because I'm a bit, one of these old-fashioned people that used to, really enjoy and appreciate the fact that independent dealers used to exist because there was an air of service that you got from people. It didn't matter what industry it was in, whether it was a butcher, whether it was a greengrocer, or whether it's a guy with a TV shop on the corner of the street. What we've lost in the giants taking over is we've lost that air of service that used to exist. The butcher really was the butcher, and he knew his business, and your family trusted him, and you went to your family butcher and you trusted him. Nowadays you walk into a supermarket and that's it. You've been driven. They've driven these people out of business. My advice to independent traders is all they can offer now is exceptional service, because I think there will come a time when the public in general are getting sick and tired of being treated, in call centres and shuffled around like cattle and being asked to, conform to certain things. And I've noticed in the past 2 or 3 years in the United States of America, who are normally well advanced of us, they lost all their independent dealers years ago, their high streets years ago, that there's a new air of service that even the larger companies are starting to realise that as they've got to win their customers back. And I think that service is very, very important. I don't know what particular business you're in.
I'm the news agent.
News agent, yeah, okay. Well, you do provide a service, and although I'm sure you'll be the first to say that supermarkets now sell the newspapers and things like that, but that's, and you have to continue to provide that service, that convenience, because if you don't, the general buying public are lazy, and as long as you provide that convenience, they'll still be coming along. But I think that service is a very important thing. I've noticed, as I was about to say, in America, a recent visit there, and it's happened in the last year that somebody has kicked Bell South, the telephone company, right up the backside, because now they answer the phone within a flash of a second like that. The staff have been trained immaculately, They've been motivated to solve your problem. In fact, they get so much now it's difficult to get rid of them off the phone. Right? It's unbelievable service I've never ever experienced before. None of this hanging on, pressing 1, dialing 6, waiting for this, waiting for that, talking to a brain dead, and then starting all over again. This is bang, like that, immediate service. And I suppose the companies realised they lost so much customers that then they need to put this kind of service in the front end to instill confidence.
Gentleman there, and then a gentleman here. Gentleman here first.
Sir Alan, we've got in our hands a leaflet of Sarah Khan, who I believe is speaking at some future point with London Business Forum. My question is, do you regret in any way the previous winner from the Apprentice series? Would you make a different decision a year on now?
No.
What was your question? Can you pass that microphone there?
Sir Alan, good evening. We are a manufacturing SME in the southeast, with all the difficulties that faces, and with some subcontracts overseas. I'd be interested to hear a couple of anecdotes about your transfer of manufacture from the UK to China, some of the nice hair-raising tricks.
Well, one of the things that often annoys me sometimes is that we're not recognised for certain innovations in things that we do. And it's going to be a long way round answering this question, but I'm going to give you an example. Back in 1974, we came up with a very innovative idea. Not rocket science really, but we put 2 tape decks on one hi-fi unit and allowed people to record one from the other. We were the first people to do it. It was tremendously innovative, and we sold bucket loads of stuff. And the buyers of the companies we used to go to, like Dixon's, Curry's, Rumbelows, and all those people in those days, a year later were talking to us as if that product is just now a communal garden thing because everybody else has jumped on the bandwagon and done it. You understand what I mean? Forgetting the fact that we were the first people to bring it to the marketplace. We have been subcontracting. One of the things that I learned at a very, very early stage in my life, in business life, was I'm not really a good manufacturer. In other words, manufacturing is the mug side of our business, okay? Having the 1,000 people, 2,000 people on a production line and another 500 people transporting stuff around, that was the mug side of the business. It was an occupational hazard that one had to do in order to bring your product to market. And so at a very early stage, back in the 70s, we used to design our product and subcontract it to people to make it in the Far East. And so apart from examples of specialist factories like we ran in Denmark, high technology factories, and a boxing plant that we would have in Southend, which literally did the end finishing of products. The real deep down grassroots manufacturing we never actually did because, very simply, in the overall scheme of things and the overheads of the company, when we did our own manufacturing, it was the largest overhead that we had, biggest headache that we had, and so what you do is you kind of get yourself a fixed cost by going to someone who has no problems about marketing, doesn't have to worry about marketing, because I'm coming along and saying to him, you're going to make me 500,000 of them. Okay? That's all you've got to do. Make me 500,000 of them and make them good. You don't have to worry about whether you've got to sell them or not. You don't have to worry about whether you're going to get paid for them or not. I'm paying you, you know. And when you find people like that, they specialise in manufacturing, and we're left to do what we're good at doing, innovating, making the products, tooling the products, designing the products, and then handing it over to someone else to manufacture it. And paying them a fee which equated to actually much less in the end of the day to what the 2,000 people on the production line were costing. And then that followed with the transport also. And when you follow with the transport, you realise you don't need 400,000 square feet of warehousing because there are specialists in that. So fixed costs was something that we did over 25, 30 years ago. And so what makes me laugh about this is that you suddenly hear these large companies like Hewlett-Packard and Compaq and Sony saying we now are outsourcing, as if it's some kind of major, massive breakthrough. That they've realised at last that having your own factory is something you shouldn't do. And so we only manufacture things that need intricate, intensive care and attention with a minimum of assembly if we have to do it ourselves, if you understand what I mean. And
when you've outsourced, have you had any problems at all in terms of quality control or any hiccups?
No, not really. No more than we would have had in our own factories. And that's the fear. People used to say, well, the quality is not going to be as good, but actually in many cases it's much, much better because there's horses for courses. The people that we use are specialists. All they do is manufacture, nothing else.
That's what they
They
know.
don't have to go and sell to Dixon's or to Curry's or to Tesco's or to Argos or this, that and the other. They don't have to worry about whether they've got any orders or not and how they're going to get paid or whatever. They just make something for a fixed price for us. Yeah. End of story. That's it. Their only worry is that whether we're going to come along and give them some more orders.
A lady here.
Good evening, Sir Alan. Which do you enjoy and why, hiring or firing staff?
Well, I don't think I enjoy firing staff, but I don't enjoy hiring them either. But I don't fire many staff, but there's no enjoyment in hiring. I suppose the only enjoyment you would have in hiring is if there's a need for new projects that you need to take on more people. So in that sense, there's an enjoyment that you're getting a new project underway. But I mean, in this day and age, you have to be very careful employing people because it's so very, very difficult to dispose of their services if you no longer need them.
Have you made many hiring mistakes?
Pardon?
Have you made many hiring mistakes?
Oh, I'm sure we have, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I have also a senior management, but fortunately, you're able to mitigate those problems, but with the precautions that one takes on these days in taking people on trial periods and all that, because you're leaving yourself into uncharted waters. If you go beyond those periods, then you've got all this European community rubbish that we've got round our necks.
Gentleman here, if you can pass the mic along here.
Yep. Two questions at the back after.
Yep.
If you look in the US patent database, I'm sure you'll find there's a patent for virtually every product you could ever think of, no matter how loosely worded.
Mm.
How much do you take heed of a patent existing before you start to launch a product, or do you let the market decide?
That's a very good question. If you were Sony or Philips, what would happen is before a product would be allowed to go to the market, it would go through an array of patent attorneys who would tell you 15,000 reasons why you can't put the product on the market. And if you had a death wish to still put the product on the market, you would then have to go on and negotiate with the so-called patent holders of all the people that they think that you infringe. Now, if you really did that, you wouldn't make a product. As you say in America, they've got ridiculous patent laws which they can come over here and look at something that Amstrad has done and then just go over to America and patent it and put in the patent, oh, by the way, we saw that Amstrad has done it, but we're patenting it in America. So they're a bit of a joke over there, quite frankly. So we take no notice of it at the moment, and I must say, touch wood, really, we have very, very, very rarely been attacked by anybody on a patent. And if we do, we tend to trade patents these days. We'll say, well, you want to go after me on this, we'll go and find out what you're doing on that. We've got one of these here. So, and
you've got these jobs worth that exist in these organisations that think they've done a great job if they've done a patent trade. They haven't got the company any money. They've just taken out, they've traded some patents with us so that if one day they want to use our useless patents in another product, they're free to do so. But it keeps them happy, keeps another lot of people employed. Like that young lady over there, she could think up a word for them, I suppose.
Okay, there's some questions from the back there.
Sir Alan, hi. Can you please explain to me the difference between your business and emotional reaction to Arsenal winning the Champions League final?
Well, we're in a kind of a catch-22 here, aren't we? I think it spells out the doom of Tottenham, really. It's because, you know, we get to a situation where, for the first time in God knows how many years, we have the opportunity of being fourth, and we're fighting our arch enemy for to be fourth. But even if we are fourth, our arch enemy can make us fifth, if you understand, by winning another tournament. So it is really ironical, really, that we've found ourselves in this position. We obviously want them to lose. It's as simple as that. And you know, what more can I say? I fear that they won't, because we are Tottenham, and you know we can never. Luck is never on our side.
Okay, next question towards the back there.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Good evening, Sir Alan. I wonder if you could tell us who in your life, past or present, has inspired you.
Well, there's, you know, it's a question that's very often asked, I have to say, and I mean the starting point. That young man over there asked me a question about when I started in business, and I started when I was about 17, and so who you look up to was the only other person I knew that was in business, and that was an uncle of mine that had a shop in Victoria. That was my, you know, who I looked up to, so to speak. And you know, within a year, 18 months or whatever, the business that I'd started on my own had surpassed Uncle, if you understand what I'm saying. And the next guru to look up to was possibly one of my suppliers that was a wholesaler or an importer of the products that I was buying. And then 3-4 years later than that, surpassed that person and you know, became their supplier, if you like. So I think throughout the course of my life, there's been various people that one looks up to. And in latter years, you know, I admired tremendously Lord Weinstock, who ran GEC, the late Lord Weinstock. He was an excellent businessman. Rupert Murdoch is someone who I have great admiration for, and you know, and the way he goes about doing things. Bill Gates, who I've known for 20 odd years, nothing else other than admiration. So that's how it is, you know, starting from Uncle with his little shop in Victoria, and suddenly, and then tending to take over and set your targets on higher gurus, if you know what I mean.
Did you ever have a mentor as such?
Well, I think mentor, gurus, whatever you want to call them, really, they're the same thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman here in the middle row.
This gentleman over there.
Is there a microphone?
Hello.
Oh, yep.
I'll try then.
Okay.
Have you managed to balance work with home? Because I do a pretty shit job and I struggle.
Well, I think discipline is I mean, I never ever worked on the weekends. But I put in a tremendous, I mean, well, let me qualify that. Obviously, if there was exhibitions or I had to be abroad or something like that, but generally speaking, weekends were just off the radar. It was Monday to Friday, intense work, but weekends were out, off the radar. It's as simple as that. I've always been open 24 hours a day to anybody who wants to communicate with me, and that we would, you know, I would guess possibly one of the first companies in England to have something called a fax machine.
which was, you know, I know we laugh at it now, but I mean, it was an amazing device which enabled us to keep in contact with not only words, which of course before that was telex, but drawings and things like that, and managed to streamline and make business faster because you could send drawings and discuss them. And of course nowadays the advent of the internet is such that it's made life much easier for me because I conduct my business from a screen, and whether that screen's in America or Spain or Brentwood, whatever, or at home. My employees don't know where I am really, but all my businesses are controlled from that screen, and I can see anything on that screen, as you all know, as you well know. You know, drawings, three-dimensional drawings, video clips, whatever I want to see, video conferencing and all that stuff. So I think it's discipline, really. There's no excuse, to be perfectly honest with you. You have to discipline yourself, and you can discipline. And I did, and I still, you know, have those disciplines.
Do you take the BlackBerry on holiday?
I take it everywhere with me. But you see, the point is it doesn't control me. You know, I can answer. You know, I can answer 35 emails in 20 minutes. That is a lot of questions answered by people, cut through the crap and just yes or no.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I prefer people to send me emails than talk to me on the telephone. Much easier. And that's what streamlines the business now. Now, a lot of people are reluctant to do that because they don't think they're going to get an answer. But I'm always been a clear your desk man. Immediate answers. And so it works quite successfully.
Yeah. Okay, gentleman in the middle here. The microphone there. And the gentleman here with the microphone. In the middle here.
So Alan, you've talked a lot about the successes of your business. What was the most difficult time that you've experienced in business, and how did you sort of get through that? What reserves did you have to sort of, resolves did you have to go through to pull yourself through?
Well, I mean, there's valleys and mountains in all business experiences, I suppose, and it's, you know, some people might find certain things more traumatic than others. Yeah, I think I've got quite a high resilience level. Things, you know, in my mind, you know, nothing is unsolvable, you know, and at the end of the day, it's only money. Right? It is only money. That's all. The worst that can happen is you're going to lose a load of money. But, you know, and the forefront of my mind is that I'm still breathing and very healthy. And that's all I care about, quite frankly, because anything else is solvable. And I don't let it kind of stress me out to such an extent that you know, I'm going to commit suicide or whatever, or get into depression over a business situation. It is what it is. It's a problem that is resolvable, and you know, you do, and then you do resolve them. You know, there was a stage in 1991 or 92 where, you know, we owed the banks £400 million, and we had £300 million of inventory, and they were getting a little bit sweaty. And I remember very, very clearly to this day a meeting in September of one particular year, where the awfully nice chaps, I might add, the bankers came in and in a very nice kind of way and said, you know, things not looking too bright really in certain respects, and that's Lloyds Bank. Who I walked into Lloyds Bank when I was 17 years old, and I've been with them ever since. They're our main bankers, and I said to them at the time, I've never let you down. I'm not going to let you down again. And this is all solvable. The whole thing's solvable. So, you know, chill out, calm down. And no, to be fair to them, they did, because there was only one person to solve it, me. They couldn't solve it. It was, you know, it's inventory, components, and things like that. And they did. The following February, we had £150 million in the bank, and the inventory was gone. And that's, you know, we solved it calmly and dealt with it. And we had a little bit of fun with the bank, as you can imagine, in February, asking them whether they were stable enough to look after our cash mountain.
So is it better to owe 100 million rather than 1 million?
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, there's the old, the old funny old story of go to the bank and ask them for £1,000 loan, they'll kick you out. You ask for £1 billion, and you've got more chance, maybe. Yeah.
Anyone at the back? I can't see the back very well. Anyone with a microphone at the back? If not, can we have a microphone in the middle?
There's a gentleman there with a lady sitting next to him. We've been very patient.
Microphone just coming to you.
Thanks. So, Alan, before I ask my question, can I just say my school, Stockwell Park, has recently received a business and enterprise college status. I would like to invite you, on behalf of my fellow pupils, to join, to just talk one day. So my question, I understand that Amstrad introduced revolutionary house phones with video calling and various features, which at the time was extraordinary as it was also value for money. Why do you think this product did not take off at the time?
Good point. And there's a classic example of a gut instinct that didn't work out. I mean, if it's trying to understand and assess what would motivate consumers. Long story short, what we've learned, and what I think a lot of other people have learned, is that people don't want video phones. That's the bottom line. They do not want video phones. They do not want to buy phones where you can be seen speaking on them to each other. That is it. That is it. Despite the fact that this video phone doesn't do that all the time, and you have to activate a video call, people just feel generally they don't want video. They don't want video calling. Now, it could be that we're back in a kind of Palm Pilot scenario again. Too early, too quick, too cheap. Maybe we should have, just made a GT version, an upmarket deluxe version of it, and sold it to corporates for video conferencing only. And instead of making 250,000 of them, we should have made 10 and sold them for £1 million each to lawyers or something like that. Because one day it will happen. One day it will happen. Maybe we're a bit too early.
Okay. Lady in the green top, down here.
Hi, Sir Alan. You speak about gut instincts, and I was just wondering, working for a network and mobile phone distributor, what are your gut instincts and predictions for the future for technology and services that are going to be offered?
I was once asked to speak to a group of executives from Nokia. This was 5 or 6 years ago, where they were really had their heads up their backside that you were going to be able to do so many things on a mobile phone. And I had the audacity to tell them that give it up, really. Phone is what it's for phoning, and it's for texting. That's it. Any other games that you think you're going to play in it, watching Beckham score a goal and all that stuff, forget it. And the only consolation I get is that I'm right. And phones are for talking on, and that's what they, and we've got the battery life low now. We've got the size reasonably down to a usable level. The only thing you need to do now is reduce your prices. And that's where I think the future lies in the mobile phone industry, is that there's going to be a big price war because, the run out of whatever else you want to do on that phone, really.
Okay, questions at the top here. Lady here.
Sir Alan, if you had your life again, is there anything you'd do different?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer to that is yes. I mean, if you could rerun things, but they would just be correcting mistakes that you've made, and you just have quite a kind of like an absolute perfect life, wouldn't you, really, which is not possible. But so pushing that to one side, the answer is really no. I don't think so, because I think you have to, you have to make mistakes, you have to make errors in order for you not, to progress further on. you know, obviously, things that have gone wrong you wouldn't do again, would you? But I mean, in general terms, the answer to that is no.
Lady here.
Good evening, Sir Alan. If you had a child at school who was, say, 10 years of age now, is there a particular area of industry that you would push them into or encourage them to go into?
Again, I don't think you could do that until you kind of got the aptitude of what that child was up to. You know, in which direction they were thinking themselves, or how good their brain was. I think it's very, very bad policy for parents or adults to actually start drumming into young children's heads that they're going to be this or they're going to be that. I think that decision is one that they should ultimately make themselves when they get to a kind of age where they're starting to shine in certain directions, really. I don't think that, certainly not at that age anyway, at all, to start thinking about what they should be doing and where they should, what they should, you know, perhaps what I would like them to learn, you know, I would encourage all parents to you know, get them to learn foreign languages, for example. We are a lazy bunch of people in this country. We are very, very lazy here, and I often talk to some of the youngsters in schools and colleges and tell them of the time that I really, you know, I used to sit by the window and look out onto the playground watching people playing football during the French lessons. And, you know, you can't, as much as you tell these youngsters this, they're not listening, they don't care, really. And I tell them that, honestly, what an idiot I was, wasting my time when effectively, between the age of 11 and, say, you know, 16, you've got nowhere else to go. You're legally bound to be in school. You've got no problems, you've got no worries in the world, you haven't got to provide for yourself and all that stuff. Take what is given to you and take it in the biggest volumes you can, because you will be kicking yourself sometime in life. And, you know, as I said to them, you know, sitting in meetings with French people, you kind of you get flashbacks of your son looking out the window there and thinking you bloody idiot, you know, and all that stuff. But can you tell that to these youngsters? No, not really.
Sir Alan, your son follows you into the business. Did you encourage him or discourage him to do that?
No, he wanted to be in the electronics business. One of them wanted to be in the electronics business. The other is in the real estate business. Yeah.
Okay, time for one final question. There's a lady towards the back there, hand up, white top.
Hi, Sir Alan. What role do you think big business has in supporting government tackle climate change?
Climate change?
Yeah.
You mean physical climate change? You're talking about all this
In the
green,
environment.
all this green stuff we're going
Yeah,
on about.
that's
Yeah.
right. Do you think big business is a bit short-termist, profits over people in the environment?
Well, I mean, we always have been, and no doubt we always will be. But I mean, you take our American cousins, who point blank refusing, for example, to comply with certain pollution activities that the rest of the world has kind of signed on to. Yet they're moaning about Iraq and places like that, yet they're prepared to still pollute the atmosphere and possibly kill off the population. There's a bit of an ambiguity there, but, you know, business can only kind of, will only support these things as it becomes law and legislation. They won't voluntarily do it. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's just another obstacle in the way. You know, I mean, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had to change the packaging that we put our products in so that it's environmentally friendly. We've had to comply to certain interference regulations so that when you switch one of our products on, it doesn't make funny little zigzag lines on your television or interfere with your mobile phone. And if we don't do that, if we don't have a kind of a sticker or a label on our product, then the bottom line is Dixon's doesn't buy it. So do we moan about it? No. We just look at it as another obstacle to overcome. And now we've got another one thrust upon us, which is, believe it or not, that every computer that we sell, we've got to be responsible for picking it up and disposing of it in 5 years' time. Can't chuck them in the skip anymore. We have to dispose of them in an environmentally friendly manner. What do we do about that? We just stick another 20 quid on the price of the unit and subcontract it out to someone else to get rid of it and do it for us. Pass the problem on. So that's what industry does, really. And it doesn't matter how much stuff you pile on, the one that's going to pay for it in the end is you. Because we're not paying for it. You're going to pay for it in this goody-goody world that we live in. You know, I've got the fire inspector comes to our building 4 times a week. I'm one of his having an affair with one of the secretaries. I've got more warning labels and fire buckets and extinguishers there that I think if we had a fire, they would get in the way of people escaping. And it's these. But do we care? No, because at the end of the day, they increase our overheads, and who pays for it? You. And that's it. There is no rocket science in this. We are not giving it back as business. We're not giving it back. You throw more costs on